morning to the VC, the vinyl community, the crime community. Here's a record I like to show. Mercy Mania. Who's interested in having that record? Let me know. I'm here with my Nic Schreck book. I'm going to read out the second part of a chapter called It Turned to Some Horror, Part 2. In 1968, Courier, through his Cupid Films, branched out from providing magic sugar cubes to London's film and music world to more legitimate pursuits. He produced Nouvelle Vague auteur Jean-Luc Godard's Rolling Stones vehicle 1+1, better known as Sympathy for the Devil. Courier was interviewed about the film in the August of '68 issue of the UK magazine Rave, the same publications Dennis Wilson would use to literally rave about his new musical discovery, Charles Manson, 1 year later. Considering the role the Beatles would play in the Manson mythos, it's interesting that Courier was the first negotiating with John Lennon to see if his mega group would be interested in working with the then and courant Godard. Courier's preference, however, was the more rebellious Stones, who had not yet appeared in a major film. Godard's cast Courier as a fascist porno bookseller in the pretentious Brechtian alienation exercise in hip Marxist agitpop. Courier is seen reading aloud about Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf while his customers persuade garish true crime and men's magazines for sale in the shop. Every time something's purchased, a pair of sullen hippies are slapped by the Sire Sieg-Heiligen smug shoppers. In response, the hippies cry out in revolutionary Maoist slogans. While Courier domes on his flat Canadian dialect, we can see why Polanski dubbed his voice in The Dance of the Vampires with Polish character actor Władek Sheybal, Sheyball, more cultured villainous tones. Godard's camera pans over the merchandise. Seen in context of Courier's later involvement in the Cielo Drive affair, two captions on the covers of the trashy magazines glimpsed in the same scene can only seem pretentious. One reads Auto Racing's Deadline's track, Slaughter at Sebring, while a detective magazine touts the lurid tales of a woman who's pregnant and very, very dead. Godard's theorized that films of truth 24 frames a second. With so many shadows of what was to come projected in the film's release to the Manson saga, we can only wonder if he was into something. Courier's first attempt at film production also carries several odd, prominent presentments of the helter-skelter race war legend devised by Bugliosi. In one sequence, set in the very Manson-esque auto junkyard-like, the one the commune left behind them in Death Valley, angry black militants read aloud from exactly the kind of Black Panther propaganda invoked in the helter-skelter scenario. As we hear how black power will rise up and conquer the world, a group of blood-stained, white-clad white women are symbolically slaughtered. Political graffiti is dubbed on the cars, reminiscent of what they would soon horrify the world when scrawled in blood in the Tate LaBianca crime scenes. If that wasn't enough, filmic foreshadowing, the name of Courier's film company was also Bobby Beausoleil's pre-Lucifer nickname, Cupid. Speaking of Lucifer, one of the women's sacrificed by the black revolutionaries in Sympathy for the Devil is an ethereal Nike Arrighi. She appeared that year in Terence Fisher's satanic thriller, The Devil Rides Out. The Hammer film adaptation of a Dennis Wheatley black magic novel preceded Rosemary's Baby as the first of the satanic cinema wave, setting the menacing mood of how Tex Watson's Devil Business was received a year later. In the film, we see a groovily attired Courier joined in an all-star backup singer circle containing an Anita Pallenberg and the Stones around a microphone to sing the woo woo in sympathy for the devil, like Beausoleil's friend Kenneth Anger, inspiring the song by giving the novel The Master of the Margaritas to Jagger's girlfriend, Marianne Faithfull, and Jagger's soundtrack accompanying images of Beausoleil and Anger's Invocation of My Demon Brother. Courier's guest appearance on the diabolical ditty marks another link between the Tate LaBianca cast and some of the 60s key cultural landmarks. When Courier saw the finished product, he re-edited and retitled it to get maximum youth market value out of the Rolling Stones footage. Goddard was outraged. He considered the Stones only an incidental feature in this revolutionary collage. On November 9, 1968, the film premiered at the National Film Theatre in London. Goddard was so upset with Courier's tampering, he jumped onto the stage and slugged the producer, who he'd cast in the role of fascist porno bookseller, in the face, screaming, "You're a fascist," to the audience. Goddard, in keeping with the film's Black Power, Kill Whitey message, too reminiscent of the helter-skelter scenario, demanded that the proceeds of the showing should go to the Black Panther leader Elver Cleaveridge Foundation. The famous public fisticuffs marked a major setback to Courier's career as a producer. With only a few exceptions, including his final film, Vanishing Point, it sent him sculling back to full-time dope dealing, eventually full-blown institutionalized madness, and his old age, publicly ruinous scrapes with the law that utterly destroyed what was left of his reputation. In 2010, event barely noticed by the media added yet more weight to the Manson's allegations that some of the Cielo Drive social circle were hooked up with the kiddie porn racket. Only 6 months after his former mentor and friend Roman Polanski was arrested in Switzerland on an outstanding statutory rape charges, one of the Manson case's most censorious figures appeared in the radar again. Ian Courier, the shady neighbor of the LaBiancas who supplied Polanski's social scene with party favors, resurfaced from the decades of utter oblivion after vanishing in the wake of the 69 murders. The circumstances of Courier's unwilling reemergence in the public eye speaks for themselves. In a London courtroom, the then 68-year-old actor pleaded guilty to attempted child abduction. Courier admitted that he'd come up to a 9-year-old girl in the supermarket and offered her a 20-pound note telling her, "I want to buy you." 2 weeks later, he also confessed Courier tried to kidnap a screaming 5-year-old girl from her mother while on the checkout line. The court case also revealed that Courier had already been charged for indecently assaulting 2 girls in '96. The mystery of Courier's disappearance after the murders was solved when it was revealed that he had been locked up in London's Bethlehem Mental Hospital in 1972. This supports persistent rumors that Courier cracked under the weight of the secrets he knew about the Tate LaBianca slayings. Or maybe he just ran into Jolly West. According to the Courier's barrister, the former darling of swinging psychedelic London suffered from Korsakoff syndrome, a rare form of dementia aggravated by alcoholism. The judge stated that Courier's probation officer was insistent that you have a dangerous man here. The Goddard boxing match was not the first of Courier's name, was the paper in relation to the aura of violence he seemed to attract. Again, in relation to the incident connected to the growing racial tension the film he produced for Goddard dramatized. 2 weeks before the Goddard episode on November 1968, the eve of Manson's last birthday as a free man, Courier and his girlfriend in the moment, model Danielle Luna, finished off the night of drag disco hopping with a 4 a.m. breakfast at the posh Hotel Cavendish in London's West End. Joining the couple were their friends actress Mia Farrow, the movie magazine columnist Steve Brandt, Brandt, the film director Donald Cammell, Cammell, completed the far out fivesome. A police inspector called to the scene later described the unwelcome guests dressed in the fantastic way out clothes, drinking, making a lot of noise. The men wore no ties. Despite the merriment that night, like so many of Polanski's orbit, four of the five seated at the table of doom were visited by tragedy and misfortune. Before the year ended, Courier would go mad and missing. Brandt would be dead by his own hand. 10 years after Brandt's suicide, Danielle Luna died of a heroin overdose. Donald Cammell shot himself to death in 1966. What happened that night garnered sensational international press coverage. The incident encapsulated a generation gap, tension between the straight society and freaky youth culture, as well as the racial tensions that so dominated the angry year of '68, the season of student protests and Black Power. Negative reports were so prevalent that Steve Brandt felt compelled to offer his own eyewitness account in the February '69 issue of Photoplay. Miss Mia Farrow, myself, Danielle Luna, a beautiful 6-foot Negro model who soon makes her film debut in Otto Preminger's Skidoo, Luna's beau, producer Ian Courier, and Donald Cammell, he just directed the new Mick Jagger film Performance, decided to top off our evening at disco dancing with a late breakfast. Having been there before, Ian suggested the Cavendish, and that had an all-night restaurant. We arrived and entered. Everyone was seated at the table, and then Danielle, who had been pimping in the ladies' room, whatever, made her entrance. At this point, one of the staff approached the table and advised her that we couldn't be served. Why not? She queried. We were told it was because none of the men were wearing ties. At least two of the four occupied tables had compromised of men not wearing ties. We pointed this out to the grumpy middle-aged manager, from whom he said, "No reason, I just wanted you out of here." It was obvious to all of us that we were been asking to leave because a Negro woman was seated with us. Even a very self-conscious Mia Luna blurted out, "Why, is this because I am colored?" The manageress walked away. Within 10 minutes, 4 policemen came running in and advised us we all had to leave. Right or wrong, they added it was the hotel's prerogative to refuse service to anyone they wished. But we just wanted to know why, Mia chimed in. The police admitted that no reason was given. Well, then we'll sit here until we get an explanation. I figured it might as well get in on the issue. A few seconds later, 2 waiters grabbed Ian and started pulling him out of his seat. Ian fought back, and then the police joined in. Before we knew it, 6 men were on top of Courier with me and Danielle screaming. Leave him alone," as they tried to help him out. Both slender ladies were pushed clear across the room. Next, we learned that Ian was being arrested for obstructing justice. Mia announced we were talking to him, we're coming too, and we all trained down to the police station. After waiting an hour, Courier was released. Both me and I stayed in London just to give testimony at his hearing. Despite our protest, Ian was found guilty. Although he was fined only $20 after all the headlines, the principal of the incident, he still bothered all of us. After we left the court, people ran up and said, "We believe you. We're on your side. Take it to a higher court." We've decided not to. Instead, La Luna reported that the incident to the Radical Discrimination Board. Brand didn't mention the scene Farrow called with her and anti-establishment antics in court. With the gay mime actress arriving late to the proceedings, the defiantly asking the judge, "Can I take my clothes off?" Can you imagine Mia saying that to a judge? Flower child Farrow was in court because she was charged with obscene language, outraging public morality by shouting the word "fuck" to the police as they mishandled Courier during the hotel incarceration. Taking the stand to defend her profanity, Farrow put forth a question her fellow revolutionary Manson often asked, "What is bad?" Defending her vulgar outburst, she said, "I don't think I don't think I said anything cruel. Oh, yes, I did. I said Heil Hitler because there was a lot of Germans attacking us. And fuck, what would you call that? Bad? That's the nicest thing you can say to anyone. That's from Mia Farrow. The El Paso Herald-Post was suitably aghast. As the word was uttered, spectators gasped, and the monocle fell from the eye of a friend she had come to court with, the long-haired, velvet-suited American journalist Stephen Brandt. Magistrate Kenneth Harrington remained stoic, and the lawyers in court blushed. In behavior recalling the obstructionist antics of Manson and his co-defendants during the later Tate LaBianca trial, when Mia Farrow finished her foul-mouthed testimony, a guard had intervened to prevent her from trying to invade the prisoner's dock when Courier's was held. She denied entry. She sat cross-legged in full meditation position on the courtroom floor. Reminded to sit properly, she flounced off to sit on Donald Camel's lap. Security removed her and equally obstructionist Danielle Luna from the court. Luna shouted perjurers while Mia yelled, "It's a lie." Sounds like the title of Charlie Manson's album. Steve Brandt, one of Sharon's best friends, since they met on the set of Valley of the Dolls, was frequently the actress's escort at social events and concerts. Afflicted by what would today be recognized as panic attacks, Brandt was sued to be the cornucopia of chemicals Sharon's friend Courier's always had for sale. One associate of theirs told me that Brandt and Courier also bonded in their cruel sense of humor and delight in disparaging their celebrity friends behind their backs. In the old Hollywood tradition, when Tate needed a date to be photographed for the night, she turned to her gay bestie, Brandt. He was only tolerated by Polanski and generally disliked by the Hollywood crowd he covered for his bread and butter. Clay Cole, a popular New York disc jockey and television personality, described Brandt as a slight, pot-marked, intensively nervous young man. Only a little over a year later, on November 30th, 1969, those intense nerves of his made Brandt the sixth victim of the Cielo Drive murders by proxy, fearing he'd been killed because he possessed dangerous information on the murder of his friend, Sharon. Brandt committed suicide with an overdose of sleeping pills in his New York infamous Chelsea Hotel, where so many other scenes of dismay would later play out. He'd barely survived a previous suicide attempt in West Hollywood just a few weeks earlier that put him in a coma. Hours before his death, Brandt attended a Rolling Stones concert with his French actress and artist Ultraviolet. The name of Andy Warhol gave the former Salvador Dali muse Isabelle Dufresne and other hangers-on from the drug-soaked Warhol entourage. This was the same Stones tour that ended in the deadly biker rampage at Altamont. After the police ignored his trips and the magazine editors he worked for refused to print his articles on the case, the desperate Brandt came up with one last plan to make what he knew public. He tried to rush the stage, planning to seize Jagger's microphone and blurt out in the packed Madison Square Garden house what he knew about the Tate murder. Stone security guards easily blocked the slight young man from this effort. Despondent, he left the gig early, returning to the Chelsea, where he soon joined the ranks of the accursed hotel's many others' early deaths. Whatever Brandt knew was convincing enough to persuade homicide detectives to interview him at length about the murders. What he told them, or yet not leaked. Bugliosi made a point in Helter Skelter of dismissing Brandt's urgent tips to the police as useless, which can only make one suspect that they may well have been too close to the truth for him. According as a confidant of Tate in the intimate of Courier, Brandt was certainly well placed to know what kind of company Fratowski and Sebring were inviting to Cielo Drive. John Phillips was one of several of Polanski's circle who despised Brandt for reasons unknown. Phillips snipes posthumously at the pill-popping tittle-tattler in the 1970 song April Annie, and her jingle-jangle faggot friend is dead. From Donald Campbell was tangentially connected to the Manson mythos after taking the always perilous steps of befriending Beausoleil's protege, Kenneth Anger. Kamel appeared as the god Osiris in Anger's Lucifer Rising, scored with Beausoleil's magnificent soundtrack recorded in prison with fellow prisoner Steve Grogan, a.k.a. Clam on guitar. One of Ian Coryer's latest credits as an actor was the film Wonderwall, which featured music by Beatle George Harrison. The Quiet Ones' composition Piggies was, of course, later alleged to have inspired the bloody graffiti in the Hidden Cielo crime scenes and the placement of a fork in La Bianca's corpse. As of this date, the only survivor of that once scandalous night of interracial dating and the F word at the Hotel Cavendish is Mia Farrow, one of the first mainstream movie stars to wholeheartedly embrace counterculture values. She was then at the height of her fame, and as the star of Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, released earlier that year, gossip magazines were still abuzz with rumors about her abrupt divorce from Frank Sinatra, a split participated in part by her affair with John Phillips, one of Polanski's best friends. Happy time. Typifying this bohemian clique's ongoing involvement with the underworld, Farrow's good hubby Sinatra had recently prevailed upon mafia thugs in the employ of Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana to pay a threatening visit to Phillips. Farrow's companion that night suffered a tragic fate of madness, drug overdose, and suicide, but Farrow got off easy. Her only plight was a strange case of selective amnesia on one particular subject. To this day, Farrow can't remember why a member of Charlie Manson's commune will be talking about her in a familiar manner in 1968, and what she may know about the true circumstances of her friend's Sharon Tate's murder. That's the end of that chapter. The next chapter is going to be even harder for me to read. It's called Enter Gibby, which we all know is about Abigail Folger, which I'm related to their family, and that ain't no lie, folks. So have a nice day. We pray for all the friends and family and children. There's so much gossip going on in my life right now, I can't even talk about it. God bless all the children. Amen.